This is Ogo Atwanya from the Vendor Experience Land, and you are watching PAX 8 Live.
24/7.
No matter where you are in your business journey, PAX 8's Voyager Alliance helps with your success at every stage.
All of our partners are important. They're all incredibly critical part of the PAX 8 ecosystem. They matter to me. I want them all to have an amazing experience that's correct for them.
You can't just ask the clients what they want. You have to spend a lot of effort and energy into reading between the lines on what they're saying and listening in a different way.
What's up, everyone? Happy Wednesday, and welcome to the game on PAX 8 Live, the show where we talk about all the cybersecurity shenanigans you need to be aware of.
So I just wanted to call that out. The Windows Hello is MFA, isn't it, Meryl?
90% of the attacks start with a phishing attack, and
Sure.
Windows Hello just completely stops it.
You know what? All my victims were compliant, but they weren't secure. And I'm not telling them to go out and spend $1 gazillion. Change your mindset.
The data does not lie. And so the data shows that security awareness training is the #1 way to combat phishing attacks.
I'm Willis with your co-pilot tip of the week.
They're our fastest growing global distributor partner across all customer solution areas.
It's absolutely a big deal, a huge deal to get recognition from Microsoft.
So excited when you see these rolling around all over Ignite. You know that these are your top partners, vendors, whoever they are. They're actually the ones that are winning awards directly from Microsoft on a global scale.
Let's say since we started working with PAX 8, we've seen our business double, maybe even a little bit more so then. And so the ways that it's helped us grow is just scalability.
The world is changing. Agent-based RMMs are going the wayside of API and platform services and extensibilities of things like Microsoft and Intune and Autopilot and all of those things, meaning that the control plane and where that exists is shifting. How well do you manage your own assets, and how well do you configure the assets of your clients at scale? Join us here in just a second to find out.
Dom Kirby, Matt Lee, the game. What's up, everyone? Happy Wednesday. Welcome to the game. We're talking about different kind of shenanigans today. We're talking about automation and API-based management shenanigans and the advent of MDM, in my opinion, over RMM. Super excited about it. And we're going to dive in with Kelvin about managing that at scale, which is something every MSP needs to do. But before we do that, please engage with us. The best way to do that is on PAX 8 Cloud on YouTube, where we are currently streaming live, because if you drop a comment there, our producers can actually see you and pull you right into the show, which is far more exciting for all of us. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, all of that jazz. And PAX 8 Beyond is coming up really, really fast. I keep seeing some numbers internally. Those numbers keep going in a great direction, but it also means we're just going to run out of tickets at some point. So if you're thinking about coming to Beyond, stop thinking about it. Go get your ticket. Join us at the Gaylord in 3 months. And with that, let's bring in Kelvin and Matt and get the show started.
Man, you can only cram so many humans in a Gaylord. You know what I mean? It's just, there's only so many.
You know, it's a big place, but like it's not that big. Yeah.
You know, listen, Kelvin, you and I have known each other for, gosh, we're probably going on near a decade at this point, at least from interactions in that regard.
Yeah.
Why don't we speak towards who you are, how we met, and what we're here to chat about today? That'd be awesome.
Wow, how we met. Well, that's like a decade ago. Do you think I remember that? I barely remember yesterday.
Oh, well, then I'm certainly hurt because I remember it like it was yesterday, but it's okay. No, it's fine, Kelvin. I don't even care. It doesn't even matter to me.
Okay, so for those joining that don't know me, Kelvin Tegelaar, Microsoft MVP for 5 years running now, something like that. I met Matt ages ago. I think the first time was actually at an Acronis event that we physically met, and we just hit it off, and we had a fantastic time. During my day job, I am the owner of an MSP in the Netherlands called Lime Networks. We've grown a lot over the past years. I remember it used to be just the four of us about, like a decade ago. And now we're like somewhere close to 80 employees and growing rapidly still. I got a little annoyed.
And that's still on the MSP side.
During my time. Yeah, that's on the MSP side. I was just about to get to like the SaaS side, I guess you could call it, because during my tenure at Lime Networks, I started getting a little bit annoyed at RMM vendors not catching up to what we were actually doing these days. We were mostly doing stuff in the cloud. We were no longer managing single devices. Devices are a commodity. I mean, I get a device, I replace it, I autopilot it, and it's done. The user is able to work again. But the cloud was much harder to manage, and none of the vendors that should have taken that market share stepped up. And I decided, you know what? I'm going to do something beautiful. And I think it was Matt, actually, that said it first. I did something called spite-driven development. I got annoyed, and in a couple of weekends, I knocked out an application that was simply built because of spite.
It's funny because I was in a meeting with Kelvin, and this is where this started. We were sitting with some Microsoft execs, and I won't name the names, but we were trying to talk about the challenge that was, no, you do this stuff in PowerShell. No, you do this over here in the UI. Oh, that doesn't exist in the UI. You got to do that one over here in this old methodology, and you have to, like, you know what I mean? It was all through that, and so you started like basically explaining to people, Microsoft's building Lighthouse. We met during the early days of Lighthouse when you and I were doing advisory for that as well. And it was just awesome watching you go away 1 week and come back and say, here, now look what I've built. And it was almost literally that fast, right? I mean, that was the origins of this need and then transition into a product ultimately. Is that pretty fair statement of the spite-driven development?
Yeah, that's exactly what happened. I just showed Microsoft like, hey, look, this is what you guys could have been doing with your time, and you didn't. It was very annoying at that point in time because Lighthouse wasn't even a product yet. It was an idea. And I felt MSPs were being underserviced. A lot of that also came from my own MSP, of course. Like I saw the need on all of this complexity, 20 different portals that all work pretty damn slow. But then you execute a PowerShell script and then it happens in 1 second. Like, what gives?
Yep.
Why isn't anyone creating an interface for that? So that's pretty much what I did. Started with, I think in the first month, like 100 users. And after that, we had, right now we're at almost 8,000 active MSPs using it, managing 2.5 million tenants.
Wow. Yeah. What are some of the things that you were trying to solve? I mean, let's just break it down for people. You know, for me, the first piece that I'll point out is the lack of multi-tenancy extensibility. That was almost predominantly the primary factor of Microsoft had sold, and I love them for this, it's where their revenue came from, to mostly enterprise entities, people that were single tenant, single world. Now we've seen shifts to at least understanding multi-tenant organizations, shift to understanding some of these other things, but there was still this kind of grandiose gap of there's service providers in the middle that do stuff that have to look at multiple tenants at once and manage them all to a certain set of standards and behaviors, right? That's at least the first one that comes to mind. What else were you trying to solve?
There was a lot of things. So the multi-tenancy was number one, because I saw how my employees were jumping from portal to portal and then not being able to do something under what was then called DAP, and then logging out and logging in under an admin account and having shared credentials somehow for some tenants because that was easier, and it just felt so goddamn insecure. It was terrible. So the multi-tenancy was one of them, but also the standardization aspect of it. We could never say with 100% certainty that a tenant matched the baseline we wanted it to have. Like, there was no way of doing that except manually going through each setting one by one. And that's something that CIPP really focused on.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's the challenge. You would either find yourself writing the PowerShell yourself, doing it. I mean, we did this, right? We had a PowerShell repo, Dom. How did you manage that disparate challenge? I mean, in there, how are you handling it?
So one of the biggest things that sorry, Dom, go ahead.
Go ahead, Dom. We heard
a lot of
in the
PowerShell
background.
code, some of which was good, right? Like, so it's, yeah.
And that never changes. Microsoft never changed anything on the back end of MSOL or any of those things ever, right, Kelvin?
we're
That's
not
never
currently
ever
going
been
through
part of it. Yeah.
the
No,
deprecation of
never.
all
They've
the
never
major
made
things.
yes, of all the major things. Exactly. They've never done that. Never.
So you brought some
just
use
so
cases
everyone's
that you
aware,
see
next
people.
week.
Yeah, like what's coming up next week? Actually, bring my ignorance up to understand. One's coming like that.
The MSOL module is completely deprecated in about 14 days, not next week. 14 days.
That's something to be prepared for. And imagine you're using that in scripts across all your clients, things of that nature. So what's great is you also said something else, Kelvin, and I'll speak to this in my own personal experience. I was actually involved in a lot of advisory councils during this time, one of those being DAP to GDAP, right? I was part of the GDAP advisory with Anna Kinney and a few others. I think you might have even been involved in that. And I was seeing the same writing on the walls. The traditional RMM vendors, the ConnectWises, the Kaseya's, the Dattos, they weren't willing to go cloud-centric. They didn't think that was the thing. They wanted to keep the eyeballs in the glass. They wanted to keep people in their RMM. They wanted to put an agent on a cloud resource, on, to your point, Kelvin, an ephemeral resource, something that I don't even want. I don't care about a machine. I want it to go dial back, and I'll put another machine in. You just did it before the show, right? Like you had a device that was no longer functional, and you put it out faster. But the point is some of these things that you've solved initially was that scalability. Let's get into the demo aspect of this. I also want to call out that you're not the only one doing this. There's tons of players now heading down this cloud and SaaS and configuration management, exposure, right? You have like Cloud Capsule. You have a whole bunch of people, LionGuard in their own extensibility. You have Nerdio has a pretty dope new CIS platform they're building as well for this. So I think you were one of the earliest ones, and personally to me helped serve my need at the time. And so I wanted to talk about it from this lens. Showcase what one can expect in this kind of platform, what you're getting out of this for us, brother.
All right, awesome. So normally what we don't do is demos at CyberDrain because, like I said, it's a community-led product. We don't have a sales team.
Sure.
So if I suck at giving demos, you should just
But
know.
you will. It's okay. I love you.
Perfect. All right, awesome. So let's actually dive into it. So CIPP, the first time you log into it, is it's pretty much a blank slate. On the side of three of the pillars that we have. So let me start talking about that. We have the management side of things. We have the security and standardization side of things. So there's three different ways of approaching CIPP. CIPP is available for every single user in your tenant. And I know I'm saying CIPP a lot. I can also call it CIPP, but that's just for when I'm feeling funny. Anyway, CIPP's manageability has a lot of things around, focused around how do I easily manage environments instead of jumping through them all the time. And as you see, I just picked up the user list for a fairly small tenant. It's only 28 users. And in this list, I'm able to immediately perform all of the actions that I would normally have to jump through 20 different portals for if I want to do it through Microsoft Portal. So this is perfect for your help desk. Imagine you're going to convert a couple of mailboxes. They need to become shared mailboxes instead of users because they left the company. In here, I can click directly on convert to shared mailbox, hit the button, and it actually performs the action instead of having to jump to the normal portal. In this case, this user is already deleted. So I want to preface that everything you see right here, right now, is in a development environment. So if things break, it's probably my fault. Anyway, let's
you
jump
mean you
on
didn't
to
want to
bigger
show
tenants.
off live data with live customer information in it because you care about the OPSEC? I can't believe this, Kelvin. This is ridiculous.
This is unbelievable, right? But as you can see, right now, I just use this tenant switcher to switch tenents. And imagine I'm working on the help desk, and I actually need to switch clients. I just switched to another tenant that has 1,600 users in it. Let me actually switch back to the other one because I want to show you guys how easy it is for a user to just say, like, you know what? I'm switching to a different one. And how fast
And can
it
this
actually
list be
loads.
managed by each user's role so they only have access to the clients that they need access to? I mean, that's one of the limitations of DAP that sent us down the GDAP path, right? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So you're able to set any limitations on who is able to access what at any point in time, thanks to either GDAP or included roles into our role management system.
Okay.
Because even above GDAP, you can still use the CIPP role management system to try to make sure that you limit other specific actions that you don't want them to take.
Yep.
Now,
Kind of like a
imagine
PIM.
you want... yeah, Yes, like a PIM. Imagine you want to do something more complex, for which you would need a PowerShell script. One example is add a OneDrive shortcut. Adding a OneDrive shortcut is hard because you have to log into SharePoint first, then you have to retrieve a user ID, and then you have to use Graph to be able to create that SharePoint shortcut in someone's OneDrive. Here, it's a matter of clicking on something. As you can see, that's the old error message. I find the site eventually. It has to load. I'm still from SharePoint, so this might take a while. But at the moment that I want to, I select the site, I create a SharePoint OneDrive shortcut directly
and it
for
does
that
the
user.
rest in Graph. Yep.
It does the rest in Graph. So here we have, well, a couple of thousand sites, as you can see. It's a lot of sites. So let's say this user needs a shortcut to this. We hit confirm. It starts executing this in the background. In this case, it even gives a clear error. Hey, this user doesn't have a My Site. This user doesn't have OneDrive available at all.
Sure.
So it's not able to create.
So it gives you clear errors that it's pulled from the Graph API command that said, hey, I don't have this. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. And a lot of cool things are in the management side. You can also zoom in on a user and just say, like, I want to view exactly what these users' details are. Same as the Office 365 portal, but there's a lot more speed here. What we try to do is we try to immediately retrieve a lot more information, like the latest sign-in logs, like which conditional access policies the user has, which potential MFA devices they have, which groups they're member of. But the cool thing is that you can immediately jump into stuff like editing the user and using the same data that was loaded before to, for example, set their first name or create a new password or set their licenses. And that's the same for the Exchange settings. Something that's completely hidden inside of M365 and you always still have to do through PowerShell is their calendar permissions. Adding a user to a calendar is as simple as, okay, you know what? I want to add this user and I want to give him reviewer rights. Submit. So that's the manageability side. Again, I selected a user that doesn't have an email. So you see, hey,
no worries.
This user
we get it.
Doesn't have an email address. It's mostly just for demonstration purposes. Next to that, we also have the security side. Security pillar is actually more important than CIPP. CIPP is focused on making sure that you are able to follow the exact procedures you're supposed to follow as an MSP in, for example, the case of email compromise. Email compromise, you need to perform specific steps, but you also need to know exactly what happened when this mailbox was compromised. What this is doing right now is starting a background lookup job for the specific tenant for any suspect things that happened. Is a new app created? Are there new users? Are there new mailbox rules that have been created?
That's cool.
Are there new forwarders that have been enabled? Has an admin logged into a portal? Has there been a login from a strange IP address that hasn't been seen in the last 30 days? All of this is checked in one go. So you're actually able to just see that data in the side window after about 10 minutes. And you're able to hit a button.
Can you be performing the other action while
user.
can you perform the remediation action while you're waiting on the rest of the data from that perspective?
Yeah,
in this case?
Absolutely.
Okay.
I can just hit remediate right now. It warns you exactly what you're about to do. It disables all the inbox rules. It disconnects all the sessions.
Let's pause for a sec. I want to pause for a second and talk about this specifically. One of the biggest things that I see with ransomware, or I'm sorry, with business email compromises with respect to MSP 911 and the MSPs that have called us about things, is that that's the challenge, is most of them don't have some formalized process of next step, capture data, next step, capture data. They're kind of winging it through that space and have varying degrees of what they do. I'm not saying yours is going to be perfect because I could already come up with things like, are you looking for any type of playbooks that have been created under the user identity that would allow them to reset their own password after a period of time? Are you looking for, and all those things. I mean, you're certainly not going to be exhaustive in those techniques, but you are creating a path for an MSP to say, this is what we do as an MSP, and then to your point, I know you're heading to it, here's the data we've pulled down that we can store and tie in with the incident that we can use as some of the decision-making capacitance we're going to use with the incident and what we do next, right, is kind of the point. So Yep,
Exactly. So when you hit download report right here, it actually downloads the full report of everything that happened inside of M365 and Azure at the moment of a compromise detection. So it just says, hey, let's take a couple of days before, let's take a couple of days after, but let's take 120 days for all apps that have been created. Let's take 120 days for all rules that have been created, because those are often, you have lie in wait campaigns and all of this kind of stuff. So it actually expands those searches to make sure that you download a report that has actionable data. Cool thing is here, right here, we see, hey, a new MFA device has been found. And here we see a temporary access pass has been added at this specific date. Well, this is a sign that what they did was, hey, let me create a temporary access pass for myself so I can log in again after a couple of weeks.
Yep. And to one of the things that you continue. Sorry.
So one of the cool things is also that inside of the security aspect, we also have a lot of monitoring components. Number one is testing if a conditional access policy actually applies to a user. You say like, okay, you know what? I want to see if someone is able to log into this weird ass app. Sorry, I'm cursing. I shouldn't do that.
No, you're good. You get
and from the Netherlands.
3 a game show. That's 1 foul, Kelvin. 1 foul. You're good.
Exactly. And you can hit test policies, and it actually starts connecting to the what if sensor. And it says like, okay, you know what? Which policy does apply? Which doesn't apply? And in this case, you see, hey, none of the policies actually apply to this user for whatever reason. And it makes it a lot easier to create a risk stance around how you've developed your conditional access or your security environment, just by using a simple tool that even a tier 1 help desk guy with a little bit of instruction could read and understand what's the next thing I need to do.
Dan Brinkman says, I wish Dom would stop talking so much.
I'm just basking in the ambiance. That's all.
So, while I'm talking, I'm also going to talk about backend stuff because I am a nerd. I am a huge nerd. One of the cool things is this is all PowerShell backend, all of it, and it's completely open source. So anyone can log in and actually check if the scripts are doing what they want them to be doing. Anyone could audit the code at any time. A system administrator doesn't have to be like deep into development or programming to be able to understand what CIPP does. They can just open a PowerShell script. And as a sysadmin, at an MSP, this isn't me speaking as a PowerShell MVP. This is me speaking as a MSP owner. You should know PowerShell. You should understand at least basic PowerShell commands. You should be able to read them. And that means you can read the source code for the entire app. Well, one of the other cool things that CIPP has is the standardization. So CIPP has standards that you're able to apply to any tenant that it will reapply on an ongoing basis. It is a desired state configuration tool. And there are many, many standards, but let's actually create one together right now and call it our
Are you
super
leveraging
standard.
DSC or are you're creating the desired state through your mechanisms and actions?
Yes, we're creating our own desired state, and that is mostly because DSC is fairly limited in specific settings around Teams and SharePoint that it can change. And that is due to DSC not having complete GDAP support. It has support for a service account, but it doesn't have complete GDAP support. So that's a limitation that we try to address. As you can see, big button, add standard template. And here we have a list of, I think, 160 standards that you
Things
can
like
all
set
apply to this specific
branding,
environment.
unified audit logs. Let me ask you this: Are you at a state where you can? Are you at a state where you can set a what I want to always be applied to all tenants type modality at this stage, Kelvin?
Let's get to it. So let's say we always want to have the audit log available and something very cool. I'm not sure if you're aware, but Huntress, Matt Keeley, and I have developed this cool trick to detect if a phishing page is a phishing page.
I saw it.
And
it's to defend against evil Genix.
Exactly.
Yep.
We have that as a standard that you can just apply to all your tenants in one go. Super low impact, super resourceful for your MSP.
Just pause. Go back. Just pause. Go back. I want to make sure this lands for people. So what this is talking about is detecting the types of CSS, of your standards, of the way the page is going to look, the things you're going to come across, the things that we're going to get, to detect when somebody's AITMing or adversary in the middle attacking that I love to demonstrate. Dom and I have demonstrated AITMs now for like what, 4 years or something. I mean, it's been a hot
While.
minute for yeah. And so when you ever ask yourself, I don't know how they got it, they didn't get a password, I have MFA, AITM is probably your adversary, and it's in the middle. And if you can detect that and block it, which by the way, Microsoft Defender does a pretty decent job at detecting natively anyway if you're using DFB. But I saw this and I saw the way you've approached it, and it's pretty smart. So yeah, this hit my radar last week or a couple days ago or something, Kelvin. But it's pretty big for y'all. You should pay attention to this.
It's a pretty cool setting, but like there's so many settings in M365 that you have to change. And because of that, we also said like, hey, what's low impact, medium impact, high impact? If something is low impact, it will probably actually increase your security tenfold, but it won't impact your users so much. Like enabling app consent admin request. It's a single setting in M365. Sure, a user or two will get a little pop-up saying, oh, you have to request.
You can't
consent.
use Calendly, go get it approved, right? Yeah, things of that nature.
Yeah, exactly. But even in that, we have an application approval. Let me actually use the search approval, I think, or app. Application deploy
like
application
approval. Yep. Workflow
deploy application. There you go. And now what we have here is our list of standards, and we can configure that standard in 3 ways. We can tell it only create a report out of it, send me alerts if this standard is not as it should be, or remediate the standard. So let's turn those all on for this, and let's make sure that we also configure deploy application, and we simply say this application ID is my personal application, blah, 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 comma, blah, 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 blah. And these are pre-approved applications. That means that the moment you enable app consent, it doesn't bother the user so much because it's already pre-consented for them. Like you just asked, you can set this to all tenants. You can also decide to set this, set specific exclusions. So, for example, you want it to on all your tenants, but you have one tenant that really can't receive it.
Don't apply it to 4T engineering. They really like to be protected with nothing. They're big fans of leaving that
their preference.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So at that moment, you just say like, hey, you exclude that tenant. You can decide to run it on the schedule, so it runs as a DSC, or you can say, you know what, don't run this on the schedule. And that allows you to just do it on demand when you want to push these settings. It also allows you to create one standard that has only report settings and another standard that also has all the settings that are actually applying. You first report on it, you check, and then you remediate.
Sure.
There's some
I can
very
see how
cool
this
changes
is. This is solving a visualization challenge too, right, Kelvin? Like one of the things about this is looking at, okay, which one of my clients have this setting set? How many of them don't? What would be the impact? And what you're really speaking towards is the project management of going through, turning on those settings. I mean, even all the way from the beginning of low impact, high impact. And I know as a system admin, I used to tell my techs, I was like, you're living on the bleeding edge of Microsoft. Don't complain when you're bleeding. Right. But end customers aren't so supportive of that statement, potentially, right? So, yeah.
Sometimes, yes. So there's a couple of other things that are very important in this case. Another is Intune and conditional access policies. You can also create Intune policies and conditional access policies completely templated from another tenant or from community repositories, such as the CIS repository, the OpenIB repository, Microsoft's, I forgot what it's called, Conditional Access Framework, CAF. All of these are importable. So you can easily say, you know what, I want to remediate this Intune template and I want to automatically configure Defender antivirus updates. I want to assign it to all devices and I'm done. It's completely set up. The Intune policy is created. It's assigned automatically and it's monitored for changes and automatically reapplied. So if an admin goes in and goes like, no, I want it to be this setting, that actually undoes it. It simply says like, no, in the SIP standards, it says
no, wrong.
Supposed to be it. Wrong. Exactly. So and that's the same for conditional access. All of those also have one-off deployments and one-off viewings. So during conditional access deployments, you can actually just see exactly what's running. You can create templates of existing ones. So all you have to do is, let's say this test policy, feel free to delete. I want a template of that. I hit create and it actually creates it. Cool thing about this is that unlike Microsoft portals, it actually supports bulk actions. So if I decide to be in a crappy mood, I want to delete all my conditional access policies, I'm actually able to delete all my conditional access policies.
That's not terrifying at all. Yeah,
Of course.
I mean, I
it's
think
very important that this is all protected by role management. So
yes, very good call out. Yeah, and if you haven't set that up properly, you should. But the point of this is when you're thinking about one of the most beautiful things of all cloud, right? And I actually wrote Kelvin in a CSA Zero Trust guide about if you were a company that was born identity centric, if you were using platform services, if you were writing code with function services, platform services, and you had no real infrastructure of a traditional nature, then almost everything that you need to do to apply ZT workloads could be done workload by workload. They're normalized. One of the interesting things about this is everybody speaks to the benefit of the normalization. Oh, now it's just a Microsoft setting. But there's 43 million of them, right? And so that the challenge is how do you do that at scale for, I think I had, 800, 900, 1,000 tenants that we were managing? I mean, it gets, really challenging to do.
Exactly. It
I
gets
just
so
want to call out
challenging.
because
And,
as we were, and we're bleeding the clock a little bit, but I want to talk through when we were looking at users right in the beginning. We were looking at all those things you could do, and one thing got me really excited, and it said, send a push notification. Like this was
That
such a
is such
huge
an
problem for my support teams. That just
so this
being
is
able
actually
to
a
send
really cool feature that uses the Microsoft Authenticator, and Microsoft recently changed the text, which I am so thankful for. The moment I send this push message, it pops up on your phone and says, the other party is trying to verify your identity. Do you confirm? Which is fantastic, because if I click this button right now, what it does, if this user has MFA configured, it will send them a push message and they can click OK or deny to verify their identity. That means you won't have a situation like the MGM, someone pretending they're not, and then, so this user doesn't have a default authentication method. And it says that.
Yep.
No default authentication method is configured.
But you can validate that user. Yeah.
Exactly. A lot of that is just like, let me send you a push message to actually confirm it's you. They get a pop-up, not a yes or no pop-up for MFA. They get a, do you verify identity? Okay. There's not a yes or no option. So it doesn't feel like MFA for them either. They just verify their identity and you get a actual return saying like, hey, this user has validated their identity, and you can start assisting them.
Do you record that in a log anywhere?
Yes, every single action that you do inside of CIPP is recorded in the logbook, which is stored indefinitely.
Okay. So it's forever.
You can go back years. As you can see, send the push request to blah, 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 and the result was no default authentication method is configured.
Yeah. Dan Brinkman said, we borrowed that push concept and code to build into our ticketing platform, which is built on the Power Platform. And I remember when you made this, or when this was made, I think it was a community ad. But I remember when it was added, and it was to deal with social engineering attacks. And lo and behold, if you look at CrowdStrike's threat report for 2024, the biggest pivot was that type of an attack. And it really was that you need to have validation methods of both your users and also your humans supporting people.
So one of the fun things about this is that I blogged about it on my CyberDrain blog when I was just doing PowerShell stuff like 3 years ago. Probably forgot all about it. And then when I was developing CIPP, someone suggested like, hey, could you implement this? And I was like, oh, wow. Hey, that's a cool, that's a cool way to approach that.
I will add, and we've got to close out soon, but I had that moment recently. I had this MSP come up to me and said, hey, Matt, we have this concept. A guy saw this somewhere. We want to do like a breakfast panel where everybody just gives the wrong answers, and we think you'd be perfect for that. And I'm like, where did he watch that by chance? And they're like, Beyond. I was like, yes, that was my panel. It was fantastic. So I had my own version of that just recently. Kelvin, I know you're all about community. I know you've made this as an open source project and community hostable with no license cost. And there's a lot of people going down this path. And I think what's great about it is that we both believe in the mission and the benefit of what comes from this. And it's also somewhat rewarding to see so many people doing this now and building platforms to solve this challenge. I mean, you were one of the early ones to do this. But yeah, man, I just wanted to highlight, if you're an MSP, and maybe we go to play of the game and wrap this up and we'll close out because we're just a little over time. But yeah, how do you want to handle it? Want to close out? What do we want to do? Dom, you're the arbiter here.
Let's do the play of the day.
Oh, I'm going to be The play of the day is be prepared. And we're going to do it live. I'll just throw out a quick play of the day. In my mind is if you're an MSP and you are trying to manually manage settings in the leaking sieve that is a comparison of PowerShell and clicking boxes and having standards and trying to scale that, I do not think you could do it without some form of a platform like this, whether it be through one of the vendors you're already with or whether it's through CIPP or whatever it may be. Having a platform to manage the cloud will be the future if you believe that more and more of your clients will have less and less infrastructure. There'll be more and more like what Kelvin described, right? Ephemeral devices and identity accessing data that's very accessible over single sign-on, and all of those being extendable from one platform means that if I secure that platform, I secure more and more and more of the totality of the space in which data can be accessed or be managed. And I just think that this is a wake-up call to MSPs that are not moving into modalities that manage clouds centrally. You'll be behind. That's it. I think that was 60 seconds. It was close, maybe. Dom, close this out.
Yeah, that was solid. I mean, I think that was about 54, 55 seconds, so right in the window of the play on the game. So nice job. Look, I'll add to that. The world is shifting under our feet. It always has been, but every year, every month, maybe it gets a little bit faster. So we have to catch up. We have to innovate. We have to drive these modern environments, especially with the advent of AI. And being able to do that at scale is essential, like everything else we've ever done as MSPs. We have to do it at scale, and we really have to do it securely. So CIPP and Nerdio and other tools really empower that and let you do it at scale and make sure things are right. So, Kelvin, thanks so much for coming on. I don't know how it took us this long to have you and CIPP on the show.
That's ridiculous, isn't it?
Show.
Like, geez.
It was ridiculous. So, thank you so much for coming on. And that is our show. We'll see you next week, same time, same place.